Hi guys, this is Melanie Casey. I'm the program manager of admissions and enrollment at UQ-Ochsner. I am here to introduce our panelists for today for our Take the Stress Out of Applying. We'll have Sue Barosse, we'll have Jae Ermer, and Kristy Dang joining us today. If you could please put any questions into the chat, we will be monitoring it. Kathy will be monitoring it for us, so that way we can get your questions answered at the end. So don't be afraid to put the questions in, and we'll definitely answer them. All right, and I'll kick it off to you, Sue.
Thank you, Melanie. Well, hello, everyone. I wanted to have this webinar today because we have a unique program in that we have such an easy application and a premier program with it as well. So I did want to put together a few slides and walk you through how to apply to our program and really talk about the different criteria. I'm going to share my screen. Takes a moment just to show up. It's more than just a moment to show up. There it is. Can you guys see that? I'll put it in presentation mode. Okay, looks good to everyone. All right. Well, just welcome. This is the University of Ochsner Doctor of Medicine program located in both Brisbane, Australia and New Orleans, Louisiana. And today's topic is take the stress out of applying to medical school. I know you don't think it's possible, but it can be less stressful than maybe what you're used to. So let's look at some of this information. So just in brief, this is a partnership. It's a partnership between the University of Queensland and Ochsner Health. So University of Queensland is located in Brisbane, Australia. That's on the East Coast, kind of in the middle. There's the map right there, so you can see where it's located. And University of Queensland is truly a powerhouse in their own right. U.S. News and World Report's rankings has just come out. I think we're listed at 42 in the world. So out of the global universities in the world, University of Queensland is listed at 42. So really a strong university, lots of research that occurs there. And we have 5 faculties. So translation is a little different. There's different words that were used in Australia. So faculties are schools. Like we have a university with different schools. Their university has 5 different faculties within it. Teaching and research is really huge. Research is something that's very important that we bonded on between both entities. And research is very strong at University of Queensland and also here at Ochsner Health. We are a teaching hospital at Ochsner that's been around for over 80 years as a teaching hospital and has grown to be from its original location in New Orleans, Louisiana, throughout the state of Louisiana, and even throughout the Gulf South. They're partnered they're partnered in Texas with, I can't think of the name, I'm sorry, but they partnered in Texas and all the way to Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, Florida, and even South Carolina. So we have a footprint throughout the Gulf South, and we have more than 90 medical specialties here, and we're ranked the #1 hospital in Louisiana. Okay, moving on. Okay, let's talk about the entry requirements. So what does it take to even apply to our school? So since this is a partnership, we do have citizenship requirements. So those that can apply to us are U.S. citizens or U.S. permanent residents. Or if you have dual citizenship with United States and Australia, New Zealand, then you can definitely apply to our program. We do have a restriction of who cannot apply. And that is if you are an Australian, New Zealand citizen with only U.S. permanent residency, then you're not able to apply. or if you do not have citizenship to the US, or if you're not a permanent resident. In this case, if you're interested in the program, you can definitely apply to the University of Queensland Medical School itself. They kind of have a similar application process, and you can take advantage of this, but it will not be the Ochsner cohort that you would apply to. It would be 4 years at the University of Queensland. So our 4-year MD program is eligible for ECFMG certification, and you can practice in all 50 states. Our cohort at Ochsner is about 90 to 100 students. So in New Orleans, where we're located, you apply to us, and then we take that amount of students, 90 to 100 for a cohort, and you go to University of Queensland for the first and second year. And you're mixed in with all the domestic Australian medical students. And then you come for year 3 and 4 to New Orleans, where you rotate through Ochsner's clinical immersions. Then for our UQ-Ochsner MD program, it is designed for US residencies. It's not designed for you to stay in Australia. It's designed for practice in the United States, and all geared towards you finishing your step exams, USMLE, the boards, right? And then some do practice in Australia. Usually this is due to a couples match, or someone that has fallen in love with Australia and does not want to return to the States. It is possible for you to stay in Australia, but it is definitely not designed that way. It's designed for you to complete a US residency. If someone does want to stay in Australia, we usually recommend that you finish the US residency, because anyone that wants to practice medicine in the United States has to complete a US residency. So every student, every US school, or anyone else that wants to practice in the US must complete the US residency. So if our student were to complete the US residency, then they'd be locked in for practicing medicine on both continents for the rest of their life, right? So we always recommend that you do complete the US residency, even if you want to stay in Australia. Okay, let's move on to our admissions criteria, and we'll start with the MCAT. So the MCAT we have a minimum cutoff of 504. So when you apply for MCAT, that's the score you're going to need to attain to be able to progress your application through our program. And it has to be taken within 4 years of matriculation. So for example, this year, our first day of class was February 3rd, I believe. So that would mean your MCAT score would have to be taken by February 3rd, 2020 to apply for this current year. So 4 years within the date of matriculation. Then for our criteria, if you have a 503 MCAT score or less, we would ask that you retake the MCAT. It has to be a 504, and there's no wiggle room in that at all. I'm often asked if we have research or a long resume, can that be substituted in lieu of the 503 or lower? But it cannot. It would have to be a 504 or higher and to progress your application. Oftentimes, the year that the academic year that we have, you might not be able to retake the MCAT in time for our final round of interview. So we allow you to roll your application over to the next cycle. So looking at the MCAT, I know they break down the scores into different sections, but we only consider the total score. We do not look at how you performed in science as opposed to anything else. We just look at the 504, the total score to be a 504 or higher. So those section scores are not considered. And then the number of times you take the MCAT does not matter to us at all. We don't track that or look at that. What we're looking for is that you are successful enough to obtain the 504 or higher on any one of those times. It's not a ding or considered bad at all. It's just fine with us, no matter how many times you've taken it. as long as one is 504. Okay, we'll go. If you have questions about MCAT, please put it in the chat and we'll answer all of these when we finish. Now let's take a look at the other criterion, which is GPA. So our GPA requirement is a B average minimum. So that means a 3.0 to 4.0 on the US scale. Now I'm saying 3.0 or 4.0 because Queensland uses a 7.0 scale. So once you submit your transcript, this transcript is going to go to international admissions in University of Queensland, and they are going to translate every grade into their 7.0 scale. And then you will have a total score of what you have to attain in the Queensland 7.0 scale to equal our A or B average. Okay, now when we look at GPA average, this is calculated only on your key degree. And for Queensland, the definition of a key degree is your most recently obtained degree. So if you have only a bachelor's, it's only going to be that total GPA score that is on your bachelor's. Or if you have a master's, they will not consider your bachelor's. It will only be the total GPA that's considered, that's shown on your master's transcript. Then it's not cumulative. I'm often asked if you have post-bac coursework, or if there's coursework that you've taken at a community college or anywhere else. It is not considered at all. It does not include other coursework. It only includes that one GPA that is listed either on your bachelor's or master's. If you have two masters, it's the most recent masters that the GPA is calculated on. So that's quite different than many schools. So I just wanted to be clear about that. But if you have questions, please let us know. Okay, then if you meet that criteria, you are eligible to be considered for an invitation for an interview. And our interviews are MMI, multiple mini interview. And I think most have heard about MMIs by now, but they're gaining in popularity within medical schools. I know they're more so used for residency programs, but more and more medical schools are using MMIs. They are more holistic and quite popular with applicants. And so let's look at what our MMI looks like. Once you apply and you fulfill those requirements of the GPA and the MCAT score, your application is assessed by international admissions, and then they send out the interview invitations from the University of Queensland. Depending on how many we interview, we may have more eligible applicants than we have for spots to interview. And the way they calculate who will get an invite is 25% of the decision is based on GPA, and 25% of the decision is based on your MCAT score. So that's ranked, and then they start sending out invitations from international admissions. And if we do have more spots than more applications than spots, you may get a wait listed. And it's often that we just pull because oftentimes schedules will not or do not sync, and those that we interviewed may not be able to come, or they might be out of town. So it is quite common that we will pull off the wait list. And even if you were waitlisted and did not get pulled from the wait list, then we're going to have a second round, and you may be pulled in for the second round. So that's how the invitations work. The remaining 50% is based on your score for that MMI. So we do have a ranking system for 25 GPA, 25 MCAT, and 50 for MMI scores. So the format for our MMI, it is conducted by Zoom, just like this, and it is 8 10-minute interviews, all successive, right in the row, one after another. So if I were your interviewer, I would share my screen and you would see a scenario. on your screen. You would have 2 minutes to read the scenario, and then you have 7 minutes to respond. And then the remaining minute is to switch over, and you are moved over to your next interviewer, and that interviewer will share their screen with a new scenario. So that's the format. This interview assesses your personal qualities, personality domains. For instance, kindness and compassion. So we definitely are looking at you and your personality to see if you're the right kind of person that has a passion for studying medicine. And this is truly, your goal in life and the job that you want to have, your career in medicine and studying medicine and caring for people. So that's what we're assessing and thinking about during this interview round. I'm often asked if there are role playing, but we do not have any role playing. It is all just a question on the screen for you to answer. Okay, enter any MMI questions because I do get many. So I said there was an ease of applying, right? We're going to take the stress out of applying to med school. So how are we doing that? Well, let's look at it. This is a simple online application. If you put in right now, UQ-Ochsner MD program, probably the first thing that pops up will be our homepage. And you can see right on there, we are now accepting applications for our second interview round. The second interview round is going to be July 24th, and the date to get your application in is July 7th. So if you would like to apply and vie for an interview spot, now is the time to send in your application. So it is a free online application, and since we only have one application, there is no secondary. So again, no cost with a secondary. Our leaders do really like to take the roadblocks out of applying, and as many of you know, financial costs could be a roadblock to applying. So that is completely not part of our application. It does contain demographics. You will fill out, name, address, your hometown. You also fill out where you went to school, and you upload your transcript, and you upload your photo and your passport page. And you always will have your official transcript sent, because international admissions will not start to process your application until they receive your official transcript. It's usually sent electronically from your school. So when you apply, it's a good time to contact your university's registrar office and ask them to electronically send your transcript to the University of Queensland. So what's not required? So surprisingly to many, what's not required are letters of recommendation. You do not have to go find former professors to write letters for you. You do not have to compose a personal statement or essay yourself. You do not have to submit or write anything for us. We do not collect your resume. We're not looking for hours of experience or research. None of that is part of your application. And we're not looking for prerequisites. There are some prerequisites that our school will look for if they find that you might need some brushing up in a certain area. There are online modules that University of Queensland will send to you free of charge. So you don't have to worry about taking any prerequisites at all. So why is that? Why did we design our program like that? So we definitely want to reduce subjectivity, as interviews are very subjective. So what is the best way to reduce subjectivity? It is by learning only from the applicant about them. So nothing else biases this application. The letters of recommendation or your own statement or your own experience, none of that is part of this application, because everyone arrives at the interview on a level playing field. The only thing our interviewers know about you is that you met the criteria to be able to get an interview. So this is as holistic a process as it can be for an interview. It does remove roadblocks. Usually non-traditional students like that aspect of this application process because they don't have to try to find a professor that you taught them many years ago. They don't have to worry about stacking up a lot of experience because they might already have a full-time job and a family. So it might not be so easy for them to compete on that level. So we remove those roadblocks to make this accessible to as many as it can be. And we definitely like learning about you just from you. No other opinions. We're assessing you on your personality and finding out who you are and your passion for studying medicine just from you. So very different, but I really like the way they designed this program. Let's look at the academic calendar year. It does start differently than the US schools. Our school starts in the end of January or beginning of February, usually the last Monday in January or the first Monday in February, depending on how that Monday falls on the calendar. And then it goes throughout the whole year, and it ends at the end of October, and it's followed by a study week and an exam week. And then you're finished your first year in Australia. And that is the summer in Australia, right? Because they're in the Southern Hemisphere. And it's also the holidays. And Australia is very work-life balance conscious. And they pretty much shut down the University of Queensland after exams are over. So all of our 90 cohort are able to come to the US and come visit their family after being away from them since January or February. So then our students come home, they're able to spend the holidays, most of November, all of December, and just about all of January back in the States. And then you go back to start class in February of your second year. So it's a nice long break, and maybe Jae and Kristy can talk a little bit about their experience for that break and coming home. I know there's breaks during the academic year, but I think they're week-long. It might not be long enough to come back to the States. So there's probably a lot of fun things that our students do when they are in Australia, but not in class and have time on their hands. So we'd like to hear about that from you guys as well. Okay, so the transition, we talked about year 1 and 2 and how you can come back in February. And right now, we always have 2 application cycles open at the same time. Right now, we're open to start in February 2026. So that's why we're taking applications right now to interview for our round, which is on July 24th. So if you're interested, I suggest applying now. And then we always have the second year open, because what if your MCAT test date is scheduled towards the end of the year? You might not be able to get an opportunity by the time we get your test scores back. You might not have the opportunity to interview to start in February 2026. So we have the second year open. So you're able to apply to that because you know your scores are going to come out maybe in late September or October. And that would mean that you might be first to apply in January 2020, in the spring of 2026, to start class in January, February 27. It's always great to start your interviews early in the year because none of our 90 spots are filled. And so we have all of them are open. And as we get closer throughout the year, more and more spots are taken. So that means less and less spots are available for filling. And if we can interview over 100 students in one day, then there's always the potential to fill after 1 or 2 rounds. So it's usually 3, but then there's less and less spots. Okay, let's talk about fees. What does this program cost? So in 2025, that's the cost, 67 plus for 1 year of tuition. What's great is I don't see that they change. University of Queensland changes this each year. It's been pretty static at this amount for the last quite a few years, at least 5. And so what is good is you can fill out a FAFSA and fill that out so that you can receive total funding for all tuition and living expenses. And it also is accredited by the U.S. Department of Education, so no problem with accreditation and applying to this program. And you may be eligible for public service loan forgiveness, right? So that's still going on. It's still a thing. And hopefully, you know, it's still around when it's time for loan forgiveness to happen. I will follow that up with a really great slide. It's about funding. So we do have funding. This is called the Ochsner's Physician Scholars Program. And it stems because Ochsner knows the caliber that they train their students to. And they would like to keep you here in New Orleans. New Orleans has many public health problems, right? We have a lot of diabetes, the diet in New Orleans, right? It's all because of the fried food and the way New Orleanians just love food, talk about it constantly, and eat it all the time. So we have a lot of obesity, hypertension, diabetes, and these specialties, family medicine, internal medicine, peds internal medicine, and psychiatry, those are the specialties that would address these public health problems at their core. So we are offering to pay $135,000 as the cost of third and fourth year tuition. So we will give you the cost upfront for third and fourth year tuition if you agree to work for Ochsner for 5 years after residency. So so it is a great benefit. You'd only have to fund your first and second year, and then you could work at any Ochsner facility. If you are in family medicine or peds, you could find out what Ochsner facility throughout the Gulf South. We're partnered with MD Anderson in Texas, so there you go for that question. And so it's a great benefit. It would require that you'd be here at an Ochsner facility in the Gulf South for 5 years after residency, but then you're free to go wherever. It is a contract that you sign. If you were to start your 5 years and then decide to leave, there's a payback for proportionately to the time worked and the amount owed. Okay, let's just take a look at our cohort. I think this is about my last slide, taking a look at what does our class look like. So I think this is first year where, no, it's about the 50-50 split right there on male, female. And then the average age is 26. We do have a wide range of age, but average is 26. Average MCAT was 510 last year, but this year it's 509.85. We didn't want to round up, so we put the actual number. And then talking about the key degree, who uses the key degree and who uses the master's as a key degree? So 21.9% of the incoming class. And then who uses a bachelor's as a key degree? So that's 78.1%. Okay, so it's a good snapshot of the first year class that's in Australia right now. And here's my thank you slide. I love that you joined us for this presentation. If you'd like to visit our website, there it is. If you have questions, we have a general email account that's shared between the University of Queensland and us here in New Orleans. We're all able to go in and look at that and pick up our own email from it or the emails that pertain to us. The 7504703 number rings to my desk right here. And then I oftentimes transfer that to my own phone if I'm out of the office or working remotely. But then you can also text me at the 504-343 number, and I'll be able to answer you pretty quickly by text. We have social media, and we'd love if you join us and look at our videos. We have very much social media there. So if you'd like to join that, there it is. I am going to stop sharing my screen now. And I think we can get us some information from our students. We have Jae and Kristy who are current students that are located in New Orleans right now. And I know that they'll be able to talk a little bit about their own experiences. Jay, do you want to start and talk a little bit about your experience to applying?
Yeah, sure. So applying was super easy, like Sue was saying. It was great. I ended up just putting in the demographic information on the website and then just uploading my AMCAS, a copy of my AMCAS application, and then I just sent it off. And Sue and everybody else was very professional and got back to me pretty quick. So it was probably one of the easiest way, like streamlined processes as far as applying to medical school goes.
It's great to hear. Kristy, how was your experience?
Yeah, I mean, I would have to echo what Jay said. Also very easy and straightforward. And I felt like I could spend most of my time preparing for the MMI and figuring out what I wanted to say and how I wanted to present myself. So I really appreciated that extra time in order to focus on that.
Thank you. So Melanie, I think and Kathy, we may have questions.
Yeah, we have quite a few questions. Everybody's been asking. I've got a few that I can just read out loud. The team, Pete and Melanie, have been responding to the questions as we go along, but to save people some trouble, of going through all of them, I've copied them out. So one question was, if I apply now and my test date for the MCAT is early September, is it too late for the 2026 class? And yes, it is. You'll have to have your MCAT before sitting for the MMI, and the cutoff for round 3 of the MMIs this year is September 7th. So you might need to wait to apply for the 2027 round. Is the criteria for MCAT on this program the same for the regular application in UQ? Yes, it is. Can the 2 required courses be taken from a community college? The University of Queensland determines if the prerequisites are considered. However, there's a really unique format, and that's if they do not, UQ will send them to you for free online in a modular format. When is the next round of interviews? The next round of interviews will be taking, or the decision will be next week. The interviews will actually be at the end of July. Round 3 will be in September. And we extend offers 2 weeks after the MMI. Does applying early increase the chances of receiving an interview? Yes, because the interview selection will fill up and you'll end up on a wait list. So the sooner we can consider your application, the sooner we can, you'll better your chance that you'll have an interview. There were several questions about transcripts. Would you send only your key degree transcript or all your transcripts, including older degrees? We request all transcripts, including credit transcripts. However, if you're currently in a program, this won't hurt. So, but please upload it so that those courses can be used for prereq assessment. Let's see. Will we be notified if we are missing or need to update any application materials? Yes. UQ will update you on any missing items. They'll also offer to roll your application over if you are unable to obtain those items in time. And we prefer that your transcripts are sent electronically, but if not, they can be sent, if they're not available electronically for some reason, they can be sent to our Jefferson Highway address, Attention Admissions and Enrollment. But we prefer them to be sent electronically, and then we upload them as soon as they're received. If you can apply if you are a U.S. citizen or a U.S. permanent resident. The program isn't for Canadians. Unfortunately, you'll go through the regular UQ medical program, someone asked. Melanie, do you think there's any other questions that are not, that weren't covered?
I
Because a
think
lot of them
that
are about this.
there is a question about the prerequisites again.
Okay.
So it's like, can you clarify the course prerequisites in there? Is there an expiration date? I graduated with a bachelor's in 2018. And so I'm going to let Sue answer that one.
Okay, so there is a timeline for the degree. It's your degree key degree has to be within 10 years of matriculation. So that is within 10 years. So that would be considered. What they are looking for is a cell bio and physiology. So they do like to look at everything that you have in your transcripts to see if you may have taken them. And probably they wouldn't even send it to you, the modules, unless they felt that you needed that, if you need. So it's something for prerequisites, I would say, don't really have a concern about it because it's each course, if it was physiology, comes in 2 modules and cell bio comes in 2 modules, and they would only give it to you if they thought that you might need that.
All right. Thank you so much, Sue. And then there has been some questions about the MMI. I know Zach has been anxiously waiting. And so I told him to hang on so that way our students can answer that question for him. So I was going to ask them, were they nervous before their MMI? And if so, how did you quell those nerves? Kristy, why don't we start with you?
I mean, of course, I was nervous. It's an interview. It's difficult not to be. But when you do your MMI, you're with a group of other students who are also doing their MMI at the same time. So before everything started, it was nice to kind of talk to everybody and get to know them, which really helped my fears go down a bit because I felt like I was in this with some other people as well. And then all the interviewers were not only professional, but super kind. They let me take my time to read the question, think of an answer before I had to actually start saying what I wanted to say. So it was very structured. I think I did see a question asking if, English as a second barrier would make the interview more difficult. And I don't think it would be. Everyone is very nice and understanding that you take it at your own pace. Actually ended up having a lot of fun with my interview. And I really liked the questions that were asked. I felt like I had a lot of opportunity to show my personality, and why I wanted to do medicine, which I don't think I would have gotten at another program.
Thank
Yeah,
you. How about
I think that is a good summary from Kristy. I had a similar experience. I guess, I mean, you're always going to be nervous, right, before you have an interview for admission to school. But I think you kind of just got to come at it being in the right headspace. You're not being assessed on your knowledge. You're not being assessed on your like abilities. You're just being assessed on your personality. And as someone who's been on both sides of it, like you really just, the best way to do it is go in, have like a great day, just be positive, have good energy, and just be authentic and be yourself and answer the questions like as you would normally. And we just kind of are excited to talk to you and kind of see what you bring to the table.
all right. And then how did you guys feel after the MMI?
I
Just
don't
kind
really
of calm.
Yeah, I don't really remember how I felt. But I mean, I had a great like it was a fun experience. I never felt like there was no I had an interview at a US school, and that interview was so rough. The interviewer was like very intense and almost felt like getting pimped in like surgery or something in the OR. But at that time I wasn't even in med school, so I had no idea like what was going on, and left that interview feeling bad. But after this interview with all the different, friendly New Orleans Southern people, that it was great, and it was a good time.
Yeah, I would
Awesome. Thank
agree. I think it kind of flew by, honestly, because you're rotating through different interviewers and all the 8 scenarios or questions they have for you. And so you're just kind of knocking them out one after the other. So it goes by really fast. But it's it ended up being a great time. So would recommend.
All right, and then here's a question from our chat, actually. It's what kind of rotations do students typically do during the 3rd and 4th years? And is there something unique about the UQ-Ochsner program?
So I guess like the uniqueness of the UQ-Ochsner program comes from the fact that it's just its foundation. It's a partnered program that duals trains you in Australia as well as the US. Um, Australia is a country that has one of the top like 5 quality healthcare systems. They're a two-tiered system. They're incredibly efficient. They're very patient-centered. Going back for that rotation back to Australia in your 4th year was probably one of the best things that the biggest parts of my education that I enjoyed the most, coming back with all my clinical experience in the US and seeing how it's different and just being able to engage in that way. So it's very unique in that way because you get that dual training. Year 3 and year 4, year 3 you have, your general like foundational rotations in pediatrics, mental health, OBGYN, surgery, and medicine. And then you get different services within those. Ochsner is a great hospital as well, as we've talked about. It's a very busy hospital. It's a tertiary care center. It has a lot of specialist care. We have neurosurgery, we have I don't know, interventional cardiology. We've got like everything that you would be looking for, and patients would frequently get transferred over for specialty care from other places. 4th year is kind of just like more specialty training. Like we do an anesthesiology rotation, which a lot of US med schools do not do. Most US med schools, you only get to do anesthesia if you are thinking about applying it to anesthesia, so you do an elective in it. But for all of us here in this program, it's required, and I think it's a great part of your learning to really understand how that meta part of medicine is working, and that just kind of how that works and how that can integrate into your medicine as whatever specialist you kind of go into. But Kristy, I don't know what you want to add too about that.
Yeah, I would also say, more specific to 3rd and 4th year, what I really appreciate about Ochsner is that just its wide range throughout Louisiana. We don't only just rotate at the main campus here in New Orleans, but we also rotate at different satellite sites and different cities. And it really brings this community health, more rural health that I think is a bit harder to get access to at other schools. And so I really appreciate that. You get more hands-on learning and more one-on-one time with your attendings.
Yeah, I feel like there's definitely like a lot of providers to student ratio. So you will definitely find yourself getting personalized attention.
Thank you guys so much for that. Do you guys think that the minimal criteria impacts the overall quality of the program? It doesn't sound like it, but what do you guys think?
No, I don't think so. I mean, during your interview is really your opportunity to shine and show if you have what it takes in order to go through medicine. And just because the application process doesn't have a lot of barriers, which is great, you still have to go through the realities of medical school, which has a lot of its own hurdles. So it doesn't mean it's smooth sailing all the way to graduation. So you really have to show that you have what it takes, because that's really what the interviewers are going to be looking for, that you have that grit and that drive to get you through.
Yeah, I think that the minimum requirements is actually in a way a good thing for the program. It kind of like it opens up the conversation to so many people with so many different backgrounds that have so much to bring to the table. And I mean, I've talked to um, a mentor for high school students, and I've talked to them about applying to college and, being pre-med, and they've kind of made it sound like it's gotten much more competitive, and that actually, schools are starting to see the value in diversity. So I think by having those low minimum requirements, we are bringing in people with more diverse backgrounds, which only really helps the class and only helps you, and it only kind of develops and does better for the healthcare community. As being a provider, you bring your own set of skills to the table. So I think it's a good thing. And like Kristy said, med school is medical school. You're learning how to take care of people and make decisions that affect people's lives. Like, it's going to be difficult, and you should have high expectations for yourself, and you also will have high expectations from your mentors and your staff and your teachers. So I think you just kind of, yeah, just do good.
Right. And I'll add on to that, the proof is in our match rate. This year, our match rate was 97%. Last year, our match rate was 99%. So we have always scored in the 90th percentile for match rate since the beginning of this program, which started in 2009. So Ochsner is well known with our residency programs, and they know the caliber that our students are trained to, and we always perform well in the match. So yeah, thanks for that. Melanie?
Thank you guys so much. Here's a question from the webinar chat. Nadini is interested in, what are some of the things that you have done during summer breaks? I know a lot of med students in the US do research or something like that. Is it different through this program? Jae, would you like to take that one to start?
Yeah. Sorry, I was just rereading so I mean, what did I do my first summer break? I think my mom was so sad that she actually got me to come home. So I think I went home and spent some time there, but I definitely would travel a lot during my longer breaks. Um, but as for the research goes, I mean, there's a lot of research that's happening in Australia at the University of Queensland. I think if you just were to get involved in the research there, you would just be you can do that in the summer if you want to. Same with Ochsner, like, you can, once you're here in New Orleans, you can get involved in research and do that if you want to. I don't think there's any like hindrance, but for myself, I yeah would use my breaks mostly for vacation or study for those first 2 years in Australia. Australia is like, it's a beautiful country. The people are incredibly nice. The lifestyle is great. Everything about it is so much fun. Like, I think someone was talking about like those who love Australia end up returning, but I think pretty much everyone loves Australia. It's just some people just, you have to make that decision if you have family in the States, etc. But I think we all love Australia. So I'm sure once you get to medical school, and advice I had gotten before I was in medical school is that, once you get in, whatever you do in medical school and what you make of it is kind of just is how it works. It's merit based. The work you put in is kind of what creates you and your competitiveness for when you apply into residency. So just take that for, what you will.
Thank you, Jae. Kristy, did you do something different with your summer?
Not really, very much similar to Jae. Not only during the summers, but during our 1 week breaks, we would take any advantage we could get to travel within Australia or internationally. I mean, I think Australia is in such a unique place in the world that it's easy access to a lot of countries that we typically don't have access to. So we really tried to make the most of the first 2 years. And I would definitely echo what Jae said, where we all just fell in love with the country. And it was so nice to go back during our 4th year. In terms of more school-wise things, I mean, you could definitely do research during your summer breaks. The option is there for you. We definitely use some of our breaks to study, especially for step 1 after our year 2, just because that is a requirement in order to graduate. So you really need to get that done. So what I appreciate about our long summer break is that we definitely had enough time to study as well as do some other fun vacation things. So it's not always school 24/7. think someone had asked a question about spiders in Australia, and they are definitely big, but they're not crazy big in the city. I think the more rural you go, the bigger they get. So if you stay in Brisbane, they're manageable.
There's also a question
And
about kangaroo encounters. Do you mind
you
answering
can
that one too?
you can definitely encounter kangaroos in the wild, as well as there's plenty of zoos. There are many beaches you can go to in Australia where there's kangaroos on the beach, so would definitely recommend going to one of those.
Awesome, thank you.
Yeah, I remember being like in Cairns, and Kristy, I don't know if you were in the car with me or not when we were driving. I think it was that trip, but it was like a 4-lane highway, and there's like this red kangaroo. It was like pitch black except for the streetlights, and there's just this like 7-foot tall like red kangaroo in the middle of the road, just like ready to like take down our van. And I was like, that is the biggest kangaroo I've ever seen. But it was awesome. You see kangaroos everywhere. You go, not in the city, obviously, but like if you go to like Stradbroke Island, which is really just right off the coast of Brisbane, there's like little kangaroos hanging out over there and stuff like that. And like Chrissy said, there's a zoo you can go and you just are in a field with like a bunch of kangaroos and you can feed them and you can pet them and take pictures with them and stuff.
And then there's another webinar chat asking if you guys were able to have time to travel on the weekends.
For sure. I mean, you have to be smart about it, of course. You can't just throw your studies aside and travel, even though that's all we want to do. But we definitely had 3-day weekends or even 4-day weekends because there are certain holidays that are observed by UQ. And so we would take advantage of those and drive out to the beach or go to Sydney or whatever you want to do. I think the closest beach to Brisbane is about an hour away. So it's very reasonable to do a day trip. But you just have to be smart about when you go and how long you go.
Yeah, I think like your first 2 years are really focused on doing well at UQ and like being invested in your studies as well as to preparing yourself for step one because you'll move from Australia to home to taking step one, ideally before the start of your third year. So, but other than that, there's a lot of time like that the time like how you arrange that in your day-to-day schedule is up to you and you need to hold yourself responsible for that. But that being said, there's a ton of time to do the things you enjoy and the things you want to do. And like, yeah, it's great.
Thank you guys. Thank you guys so much. Someone did ask recommendations for studying for the MCAT on time constraint. Since you guys are current students, I think you guys might be the best ones to answer that, but maybe Sue wants to chime in.
Well, for MCAT, the most important thing, that's the hurdle that you're going to have to pass. Because if you're applying to medical school, you probably have an A or B GPA. So now you need to get that 504. So you really do have to put in the time and effort and long time of study to be able to build on that and make sure you work on where your weak areas are, because that's the hurdle to pass. We would not be able to progress your application. So my suggestion is look at your schedule, find when you have time throughout the year for you to dedicate as much time as you need to do well on the MCAT. There are free resources. You can find where your weakness lies and then just keep building on your free resources. If you feel you need to take a course, then okay, but I would say give it as much time as you know your study habits and how well you perform after studying and how much time it takes. So I'd say for your personal self, look at that and do the best you can and separate that time and be dedicated to it totally.
Yeah, I think that you kind of need to be realistic with yourself and you need to trend your scores. I think as far as like efficient studying goes in a small time constraint, you need to still make time for yourself to relax and decompress. You can't be just like going 16 hours a day every day. You're going to burn out, you're going to fry out, you're going to start making a lot of silly mistakes because you're just too tired. You need to still get good sleep and you still need to get exercise during that 1 month. And then also, I would say the MCAT, like any standardized test, it half the battle is learning how to take that standardized test in particular, answering those questions in particular. And that's advice I'd give to my third year mentee for step two. And that's advice I'd give anyone about step one and step two. And that's learning how that test is asking questions and being able to answer those questions to that specific style of questioning.
Thank you so much. There is a question about living and the lifestyle being a medical student in Brisbane. We are running a little short on time, so if you guys want to do a quick answer, but we also are going to be having a webinar in August, living in Brisbane, that I would strongly suggest you sign up for to learn a little bit more about living in Brisbane. Would you guys like to answer if you lived on campus? Did you have apartments? How was the culture and the food? And then access to groceries and living in general. Any topic? We got about 3 minutes.
Yeah, most of us lived in apartments off campus, but you definitely have the option to live on campus. It just depends on what you want to do. A lot of us wanted to live in actual Brisbane because the UQ campus is a bit, it's in St. Lucia, which is a little bit far from Brisbane. Not far, but not in the main city. So we really wanted more of that city life. And the culture in Brisbane's great. It kind of gives a small town feel in a big city, if that makes sense. I mean, you have access to do so many activities. There's all kinds of cuisines. I personally thought the Asian food there was amazing, which was a wonderful thing for me. But it's still small enough that, you know, you'd still run into people you know all the time. And it's honestly an amazing place to live, and the weather is sunny mostly all year round. So we always say that we miss it every day. So
Yeah, the public transportation's like really good, and that makes your life a lot easier. I lived like right across the street from Mater Hospital, which is one of the teaching hospital sites, and yeah, it was great.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much. Thank you all for joining us this evening. We are going to end the webinar now. If you didn't have your questions answered or you are interested in applying, please see our website. Pete has nicely popped those into the chat for you guys, as well as our Instagram, our YouTube, LinkedIn, and extra links. And then we will be having continued webinars throughout the summer, including living in Brisbane and living in New Orleans. So we hope to see you there and join us for that. All right. Thank you guys so much for joining us this evening. Thank you, panelists.
Thanks,
Thanks,
guys.
Melanie. Thanks, Sue. Thanks, Pete. Thanks, Kristy.
Yeah, appreciate it.
See y'all.